This is Nick Christopher with Bob Tales. Thanks for tuning in. Today we have a very interesting guest, Paul Schiffbauer, if I'm saying that correctly. He's has an interesting background, from an Army veteran to working with the wise guys later on down the line. So he's got a very interesting story. So please, guys, subscribe, share, like, all that fun stuff, and leave comments. We definitely like to see that. So, Paul, thanks a lot for coming on. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you invited me.
Oh, all good. So my first question would be, is before we get into the meat stuff, the really interesting stuff, is you started off where you were in the Army. You're an Army veteran.
I was in the Army. I spent 4 years in the Army from 1985 to 1989.
Okay, and what in the Army, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. What motivated you to get involved and to enlist to begin with?
It's kind of funny. When I was younger, I always wanted to be. It's kind of crazy. I always wanted to be a cop and then a Fed. And in my 1985 yearbook, you see a picture of me. I had long hair, parted in the middle. Just take me 45 minutes to blow dry it. But in my high school yearbook in 1985, it said, "Long life, lots of money, criminal justice degree, hopefully FBI." And I geared my whole career in school, National Honor Society. I went on police ride-alongs, did well in school, up to the 10th, up to the 11th grade. 11th grade, it wasn't cool to be smart. So then I kind of fucked off and did what I didn't do too great. So my grades dropped. So I'm thinking like, I still wanted to be at that point before I got involved in, with the illegal gambling, racketeering later on. But at that point, I still wanted to be a cop and then a Fed. So I said, well, my best shot now is to go in the military to get some money for school. So I did pretty good on the ASAP test. And I looked at one job I qualified for was a 45 Bravo. And that was a small arms repairman, which is like a gunsmith. And it came with a top secret security clearance. And I'm thinking like, man, this is great. This is going to fit, Army background, top secret clearance, gunsmith, get out, school, police, go to the feds. That's the crazy part of the story. That's what I want to do. I was gearing my whole life to that. So I get out of the military in 1989. Start applying for Baltimore County Police, Baltimore City Police, Anne Arundel County Police. I got all the way through Baltimore City and Anne Arundel, like a 95 and a 98. But then it was a hiring freeze. It was like 18-month wait. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I got to get a regular job. So my sister worked at a hotel. So she goes, you can come work at the hotel, be a front desk clerk. So I went over there. I started working there, and that's where I met my future wife. She was my boss. The woman that hired me, we eventually started dating. So we're going out. We're dating, and she knew my plans, and I wanted to be a cop and be a Fed, and she was all for that. And after about 4 months, we're getting serious because I'm 23, 24. She's 4 years older than me. So women older want to get more serious. And I started going around to her families. They had a party every weekend. I used to call them festivals. I mean, every weekend. And this is where I met my future boss, who was tied in with it was organized crime, not La Costa Nostra, but it was organized crime because they controlled all the gambling poker machine rackets in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. Him and like 4 or 5 other guys controlled about 80% of it.
This is where what part of America?
This is Baltimore.
Baltimore, that's
This
right.
is in Baltimore, yeah.
That's right, Maryland.
I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of I guess wise guys there per se in Baltimore because these guys were making decent money, but not like tons of money like they're making in New York with the airport, things like that.
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm going to these parties, and real quick, my brother-in-law who just bought this vending company, this machine business company 2 years prior, he started being interested in my story, like, oh, you're in the military, you want to be a cop, you have a clearance. And one good friend that was always there, who ended up being my best friend till he died, my kids called him Uncle Phil to the day he died. He was a judge. He was a Baltimore County Liquor Board judge. And he was family to my wife's family, but not blood. But he was connected to all the politicians. He knew everybody. He was 23 years out there as a Baltimore County judge. before he passed away. So anyway, these two guys at the parties would start talking. They talked to everybody, mingle, and then they're like they went on their own because they would always talk shop. Who's whose place is coming up for sale? Because they want to get these accounts and put poker machines in there. That's what the racket was, video poker machines. You couldn't. They were legal to own and operate, but you couldn't gamble on them. Nod, nod, wink, wink. Everybody was. And the game was you can't get caught or you get busted, get locked up, they bust your
Mhm.
shit up. So anyway, they kept asking me questions about what I want to do with my life. And they figured like, I took it as like after about 6 or 7 meetings with them, calling me over and the rest of the family's like, why are they pulling me aside, because they knew what they were involved in. I was getting an idea, I have a vending business. I have jukeboxes. I have cigarette machines. I have pool tables. I have pinball machines. And we have poker machines, but they call them fast pieces because they make a lot of money fast,
You see, you're speaking of the Joker poker machines.
Joker poker, 8-line pokers, and they had the standard 8-liners. But these guys, kind of monopolized a lot of, Baltimore County and Baltimore City. And that was a crazy thing that they were legal to own in the state of Maryland, these poker machines. But every other jurisdiction in the state, other than Baltimore City and Baltimore County, didn't allow them, which is crazy. But then later on, I found out as I got involved in that business, most of the politicians, like early on in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, a lot of politicians, at least in Baltimore, like local, your county, your city, and then your state, which is Annapolis, a lot of those guys that became politicians, they were like bar owners, restaurant owners, because people saw them all the time. And so they started to run for office. And those guys were familiar with the vending machine operators because they loaned them money. They got them in business. They helped them with the elections. So they had enough of these guys on payroll to keep these things legal, at least in the Baltimore City and Baltimore County. So anyway, that's what I got the hint. I told my then girlfriend, I think it's like I've been on an interview with these guys. They keep asking me questions, what I want to do, and they're telling me a little bit about what they're doing. And she goes, "Yeah, he may want to offer you a job because." And these two guys, I was in my 20s. These guys were like 20. Sonny was 20. My brother-in-law was 20 years older than me, and Phil, the judge, was 25 years older. So that's the age difference. My wife was the youngest in her family. When she was like 12, all her siblings were married and out of the house. So there was a big difference in age. So Sonny started checking in the hotel. He was staying at the hotel where we worked. And one night he came in and he said, "What time?" He always called me Paul. He called me Paulie till when we had a bad split. But he's like, "Hey, when you get off?" I said 11 o'clock. He goes, "Can you come on up to my room and I'm going to talk to you about something." So I knew at that point, I think he wanted to make me an offer, because I'm on a waiting list to become a cop. I'm still kind of looking at that direction. So my wife's like, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Oh, good. Listen to him and see what he has to say." So I go up to the room. He loved to smoke. Just picture this guy. I wrote a TV pilot about my story. This guy was always freaking smoking. He loved to smoke. I mean, he would like make love to a cigarette. I mean, it was just so over the top. He smoked all the freaking time. So I go up to the room and the other quirk about him, wherever we went, even when he stayed at the hotel, he would get a king room that had like, a separate area where you had, a table, a couch, a chair, a desk, and he liked the room where there's a big window where he could see people coming into the hotel. And even later on, when we would go out and sit somewhere or go out, he had to sit facing the door.
Hmm.
He always had to see who was coming in and out of places. So I'm up in the room, I go up in the room and he starts with, what I do, a vending company. And they had about, they weren't one of the bigger operators, but they were he bought one of the operators companies he was in business for like 40 years. So it wasn't the commission like La Costa Nostra, but there was like dozens and dozens of operators, machine operators, but there was 5 of them that would sit and kind of talk about things about who's stepping on whose toes, who's trying to get too big, what politicians need money to kill legislation. So he was in that group. When he bought this company 2 years prior, he kind of got involved and he was like in that situation, which he liked. He wanted to know what was going on. So during the conversation, he's telling me well, we have 110 cigarette stops. It's not bad, 110 cigarette stops. But the cigarette stops, they only had about 60 bars where they had poker machines, jukeboxes, pool tables, which wasn't bad. They were pulling in at the time. He had a partner at that time. They were pulling in about 60,000 a week, which it's not like New York money or mob money, but it's pretty good money. I
Yeah, but
mean,
this is around when? Around the early 90s?
1990, yeah.
That's a lot of money
1990.
back then.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like Lufthansa or shit like that. I mean, so he was telling me, we have these and we have bars and we have poker machines. And he said, I said, well, what's going on with that? Because I was still looking to be in law enforcement at that time. So he's like, he goes, look at us, we're like bankers, which was true. You wanted to buy a bar. The banks weren't lending you money to buy a bar or restaurant. They have to go to see one of these operators. And they come to see him or Joe or somebody else in the business and say, I'm looking at, this bar. I need 25 grand down. You lend them 25 grand. At that time, you could buy a bar for 300,000, maybe not the property, but the liquor license in the business. And then you give them 25,000. They'd lock them in. You get 5-year contract, vending contract. You get your 25,000 back within a year. You're whole in a year, and then you got 4 years to ride it out. And they try to do that a lot. Sometimes the money varied. If it was a good stop, you pay more money for it. So he's explaining, what they do. He's trying to act like it's not a racket. I'm a businessman because he wants me to sign on. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't know how this is going to affect the police department. And he goes, look, you got an 18-month wait. Phil, who's a judge, good friend, he goes, he'll get you in. When they call you up, boom, he'll make a call, he'll get you in. If that's what you want to do, so he's thinking about how to get me involved. So I'm like, I don't know, So I was looking at this briefcase he had by his bed. It was laying on the floor. He puts it up on the bed, opens it up. He opens his briefcase up, and there's 6 stacks, bundles of money, rubber band together in this briefcase. And he takes one of the bundles out and he throws it to me. I catch it. It's $5,000. And I'm like, he goes, what do you think of that? I said, man, I've never had $5,000 in my life, especially in my hands. I said, that's more money I made the first year in the Army, $5,000. And he goes, see that briefcase? I'm like, yeah. He goes, that's 30 grand. That's my cut this week. That's what I split with my partner. And I said, that's pretty freaking good. He goes, look, me and my girl, my now wife, we're getting serious. And he goes, you're gonna be family. He's like, you'll be doing me a solid. My wife's on me, to help her younger sister out. You'll be doing me a solid. Come work for me. You'll help me out. I'll help you out. You'll save some money. This is his pitch. You'll
Yeah.
save some money. And he goes, then when the police thing comes up, if you really want it, hey, no problem. You can go, you can do it. But he knew once I got in there and got a taste of the money and everything going on, the politicians, people knowing you, people getting up, giving you the seat in the restaurant or something. He knew once I got a taste of that I would be hooked. So I'm thinking like, I'm not sure. And he goes, what's this? He goes, what's this? What are you going to make? He goes, what are you going to make starting the police? What's that going to pay you? And I'm like, the city starts like 21 and which it did was like 21.5 at the time, 1990. And then the Anne Arundel County, the other one I was on the waiting list was 23.5. He's like, I tell you what. He goes, I'll start you at 35,000 a year. I'm thinking like, I don't know anything about this business. I said, you can hire anybody off this. No. He goes, you don't understand. He goes, when I bought this business, I bought the employees with it. You just don't hire people, like the mob. You're Sicilian or your associate. You got to be cleared. You got to know somebody. This was the same. This was similar to the mob in the sense that the organization that you had to know somebody to get involved in this business, or you're a family. You just couldn't be some guy filling an application out. Oh, I'm going to come be a route man. Who the hell are you? So I'm like, 35,000 a year. I didn't say what he knew. He knew what the cops started at. He knew all that. And I get ready to hand him back the $5 grand. He's like, no, brother, that's all yours. That's a signing bonus. because I really want you to come work, trust you to help me out. I'm like, fuck,
So
man.
so basically these guys that you're talking about, this
Yeah,
gentleman particularly,
yeah,
and Phil, right?
yeah.
So these were so people could get a better, clearer idea. Because the way you explained to me, I mean, if I was unknowledgeable,
Uh-huh.
I would think this guy was a wise guy that you were talking.
He present, Sonny presented himself as a wise guy, but he wasn't. I mean,
This is what's so interesting.
yeah,
That
I mean, and they actually they emulated the mob, the guys that ran most of the businesses. 80% of the machine action in Baltimore City and Baltimore County were controlled by 5 companies. And he had one of the companies. And the other 20% were like, they didn't give a fuck. It was like petty shit or whatever. Just they let them eat each other up. So in that sense, there was kind of a hierarchy. They didn't step on each other's toes. Like if an account was pissed off at something, they wanted to leave, say Joe Rock on. He was the biggest operator. He was making up 150,000 a week at the time. If somebody wanted to leave him and wasn't happy, if he came to us, if his client came to us, said, "Hey, I'm not happy with Joe. I'm under contract with him, but I want to see if I can get out." So we would go to Joe, and you guys call it a sit down. Same kind of thing. We go meet Joe and say, "Hey, Bill at Bill's bar, he approached us. We're not stepping on your toes. He's approached us saying he's not happy. He'd like to get out, but we understand he's got 2 years left on the contract." So a lot of these guys, we would tie these accounts up. If we loaned them money, we'd put a lien on the liquor license. And if they owned the property, we'd put a lien on the property. So we can control the place. So if they fucked up, fucked off, or weren't making money for us, we throw them out and put somebody in there. So during these, so-called sit downs, we discuss like Jim may say, I got 2 years left on the contract. The guy's being an asshole. You can have him, but I want 10 grand to buy I want 10 grand to buy the last 2 years out. So sometimes it worked out like that. But if it was a good stop, Joe would be like, "Thanks for coming." He's not getting out of the contract. He's staying. When it's up, in 2 years, if he wants to talk to you then, he can talk to you then. So that was the organization level, how they talk to each other. But it was some other third party vendor that didn't have a lot of accounts. We didn't give a shit. We just roll over top of them. We just would move. Sometimes we just go in there and move their equipment out in the back, put it out back, and put our shit in there. Say we're your operators. I mean, we did shit like that. So
being that these guys are not per se the mob,
no, no.
they whatever wise guys were in Baltimore. I knew there was a Greek crew.
There was some in there. We we
Yeah.
we knew a few. We knew a few bookmakers that booked. They wouldn't take anything less than $500 a game. That were connected to like New Jersey. We knew some guys like that.
Well, I know there was a Greek crew in Baltimore too.
Yeah,
Where
the Greek town. Yeah, Greek town was there was people there too. So I mean, when you talk about the mob, I mean the mob's the mob, the Italian mob. But as far as like organized crime, I mean you had the guy up north. They wrote a book with what it was called Black Mass. The guy,
Whitey
I'm
Bulger.
talking, yeah, Whitey Bulger. I mean, he was an organized crime guy. He wasn't Italian. I mean, but he had a crew and he did crime. And it was the same thing in Baltimore. But Baltimore, the thing with Baltimore, people when I tell the story, they're like, "What?" Because it's not a big market, but this was going on. But see the thing that was how they controlled a lot of it. A lot of these guys that made it to be politicians that had bars at one time that these guys loaned money to and they moved up and they're politicians. They controlled a lot of them guys. They kept whenever they would try to pass a bill to outlaw these machines, they would get a hold of these guys, either pay them, bribe them, threaten them, because usually they have something on somebody. So that's how they controlled a lot of this. So it wasn't like they weren't out killing people, but they had stuff on people, these politicians from early on when they owned these bars. And eventually now they're a senator, a local senator. And hey, remember when we just take these guys to Vegas and they get girls and blow and we witnessed it. And remember that trip to Vegas you made back in 1991? Oh yeah, that bill ain't gonna pass. that bill's done, you know. So they didn't want that. They didn't want that shit out there. So that's kind of how we control things. I mean, not me personally, but the group, as
Yeah.
for so like I said, they emulated the Italians, but differently,
But so these companies you're speaking of were inherently legit.
They were legit as far as you weren't using their machines to gamble. And what the saving grace was on all the poker machines, the legality was they had to say amusement only on top. And hey, we put them out there with the intent of amusement only. It's a game. We didn't know we didn't know there was gambling in there. You know, that's and for years when I was in that business, I'll tell a story about my first raid I was on, my first involvement with police. But for years, the operators got away with it. We're not gambling. We just put the machine. We didn't know what they're doing in there. They knew it was a game. It was like playing. It was like literally. I describe it as playing cops and robbers. That I mean, it was like playing cops and robbers because we didn't have the word omerta, but what we had was don't fucking talk about this. And my wife at the time, her best friend was a Baltimore County cop, and her husband was a Baltimore County lieutenant. And when we went out, it was pretty dicey because they knew I worked for a vending company and they knew what the vending company was about. And I didn't talk to anybody outside of that business about the business. If somebody would ask me, even when I was on a raid and the cops were taking my ID and asking me questions, I just move equipment around. I don't know. I don't know anything. That that was my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's kind of how it was. So that was their emerta. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about even when we're being arrested or being raided, and they have a witness to somebody getting paid off. We don't know what they're doing. I don't know what you're talking about. We deny it.
How long do these guys have this type of control? How many years?
They had it for years. I mean, I was in it from 90 to 96, and the whole time I was there, they had control. I think when the slots started coming in later on, like their slots are everywhere now. Like in Pennsylvania, you have slots at the gas stations. I mean, the slots are everywhere now. But when the slots came in, when I was in it, every year they were worried about getting slots. But we were the five guys would meet and they give me 100 grand, give me 150 grand. They would keep giving money out. Oh, the slots won't pass this year because they're paying these guys off. So eventually, some of these guys died off when I got out in 96. I owned a bar. I bought a bar in 93 to 2016. But when I got out of it, they still were pretty relevant. But as it went on, and these older guys that had control were dying off, the young guys didn't give a shit. They're like, I'm not giving anybody any money. Well, that was the end of it. Then the slots come in. Then you have the slots everywhere now.
So when you got out of it, you said in 90.
I got out in 96, yeah.
96. So after 96, were they still operational?
Yeah, yeah. I had poker machines in my bar the whole time I had my bar. I mean, I was making big money. I mean, I was making $5,000 a week off of 2 poker machines. I mean, I didn't have to. I mean, I worked a lot. I was the main cook there, but I had a little 2,000 square foot bar. I mean, 5,000 a week, not every week. Probably the worst week would be $1,000. Just 2 machines sitting there. Jukebox, I'd make 400. Pool table, I'd make another 400. And I think I was showing vending income maybe 20,000 a year. I mean, I was making that a month. So I mean, that's that's one little bar. We had 50 to 60 of them when I was in that business. So they're making a lot of money.
Well, when you were in this business, you also not only got involved in the vending machines, but you also went into money laundering and
We're
extortion.
laundering money, we're extorting people. It's when you're putting things out there for illegal gambling, it's considered racketeering because we're all conspiring together to use these things for illegal gambling. So it's racketeering too. And it's just I was the story was I was fortunate. I mean, the feds were involved. I had the feds following me, tapping their phones. I mean, I'll go on with the story, but there's a lot of crazy shit happened during that life when I was in there. But like I said, once I got a taste of it and started making money, and when I became a route man, when you're a route man, you're doing collections. You're actually settling with the guys, and every bar didn't have the same deal. I mean, some people owed us money. We take it off the top. I mean, some people wanted to borrow money, but maybe we didn't want to give them 25 grand up front. maybe we give them 500 a week out of our end, like as a loan. So there's different deal. Every place had a different deal.
So this was
But it,
only all
I'm
the
sorry.
county. This is only in that county. Was it
No,
in,
the only jurisdictions you could have these was Baltimore City and Baltimore County. But that's a big area. Most of the population is in Baltimore City and Baltimore County.
is that
So
near or no?
I'm sorry.
Is that near Annapolis?
Um, no, well, Annapolis. I think it's Annapolis is south of the city, but you couldn't have them in that jurisdiction. See, they were legal. They were legal in the state, but every other jurisdiction outlawed them because of the problem, because of the illegal gambling. They knew that was going on. And of course, we had the block. The block was in Baltimore City. At that time, when I was involved, we probably had every cigarette machine on the block, and probably half of the poker machines. But they weren't really gambling places. We'd walk in there and count 1,000 ones because the girls that were dancing would get ones from the Johns in there, and just all day long put $1 bills in there, and we ended up counting 1,000 ones at a poker machine.
So is this, but this is not prevalent anymore, or is it?
It's still there. It's still happening, but not like it was, not like back then.
Okay.
When I first got in, not like back then. And how, like when I started working there, Sonny ran the show, and what he told me was he had a partner. He had a partner named Ira, and it was Ira's father-in-law's business, but Ira's father-in-law couldn't stand him. But it was his only daughter that married him, and he knew Sonny had money. Sonny had cash from another business, and he wanted a $250,000 cash, under the table, and he wanted 500,000 on the books over a couple, handful of years. So that's how Sonny got involved, because the father-in-law wouldn't sell it to Ira, but he would sell it to somebody else with him. But then Sonny was smart. He's a bright guy. He told me, I let Ira be the president, vice president, and all, and I'm the treasurer, because if the feds come in or police come in and kick the door in, they're going to lock him up. They're not going to lock me up. So he was always thinking like 10 steps ahead of everything.
He isolated himself a little bit.
I'm
So
sorry.
he isolated himself a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. He was a very smart guy. I mean, like a 140 IQ, and he was always thinking way ahead. And when he hired me, the crazy thing was, he gives me the directions of this place. It's in a bad area of the city. That was the other thing. If you had a vending company, you had to be in, the company had to be in those jurisdictions, the city or county, or they'd come and raid you, close you down. Because, like I said, it wasn't allowed anywhere else. So they had a warehouse in Baltimore City. It was a bad area of the city. In the 90s, it was a bad area. And it was an undisclosed building warehouse. There was no markings on it, no name, no number. He said it was a second door from the end, and it was a steel door, and it had a window with a metal gate and a buzzer. So he said, when I first day on the job, he says, show up there, second door up, steel door, hit the buzzer. And I hit the buzzer, and I could see through the window. I could see a woman behind the desk. Her name was Janice. She answered the phones. And I said, I'm here for Sonny. She's like, who are you? She knew who I was. She knew I was coming. My first day working there. So I see Sonny hit the buzzer, lets me in. And then his partner stands up. Who's this? He didn't tell his partner he was hiring me. He didn't tell his partner shit. So I go in there, I think like, what oh, who are you? He just introduced me as Paul. He didn't say future brother-in-law, nothing. And the first thing that struck me when I walked in this place, you go through this metal door. They got to buzz you in to get in there. It's a thick metal door, and it like boom, it slams behind you. And then you're in this little box with a window where you can see her, and there's another door. So once you get through that door, there's another door. So I mean, it's pretty freaking secure. And then they got to let you in this door to get in the office. And then in the office area where you sit, all these pictures were from the previous owner. Every politician you can think of, he's with. The previous owner they bought the company from. He knew everybody. And
But
that's how these guys operated. That's how they controlled shit. They knew all these politicians.
for all intents and purposes, the political machine in Baltimore or in that specific county was
Yeah.
pretty
Oh, and
corrupt.
that time it was. And my mother used to say, she said two things. When I was a kid, she knew about me she knew about me getting involved in this business. She thought it was temporary. You know, your mom always worried about you no matter what. She's 81 now. She still worries about me. I'm 57. She told me when I started work for these guys, she said, when you were little and kids were knocking on the door that I didn't like, that I thought were bad people, I'd tell them you're sick, couldn't come out, whatever. She goes, these people you're hanging with were the kids I wouldn't let you play with. And these are the guys, she, my mother told me this when I'm working for these guys.
That's
And
pretty.
and it was true, you know, she wouldn't let me play with these people as kids. So, and now I'm working with them. So I go in there and I meet Ira, I meet the guys in the back, and Sonny doesn't tell the guys who I am. He just is Paul. He doesn't say this is my future brother-in-law because he wants them to be worried because he never trusted anybody. That's the other reason why he brought me on. He's thinking like, if I was an honor student, if I wanted to be a cop, if I have a clearance, a top secret clearance, I got a clean record. I'm like a Boy Scout. So that's what he was thinking. So he can trust me with cash. Plus, I'm going to be in his family. So he introduced me to all these guys, you know, day mechanic, night mechanic, guy around the cigarette route, guy who moved equipment around, another guy fixed the boards, and then we had like some outside guys that we buy machines from that knew how to set machines up. Because the other thing was you couldn't have a meter in these machines. These machines, if you're I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but they have internal meters. Like they'll keep a record of every coin in there and every coin that's paid out. They don't lie. So if you steal from them, they're going to find out. If you say somebody hit the machine and it's not registered as a payout, we're going to find out. These things keep everything. So we had guys that would set them things up to where when the police would raid us, if they found that, if they found a meter inside that machine, they would charge us. So we try to keep them clean as far as they didn't know where the meter was. Maybe we did. We had a button somewhere or something we touched to pull the accounting mode up. But that's where they would come after. If we had it set up to where there's meters, they would charge us for running an illegal gambling business. So that was one thing we try to keep them clean. And we had guys on the outside that could clean them up for us.
So basically, Sonny was like the boss, so to speak.
Sonny was the boss. Yeah, he was the boss of our vending company. And there's other guys that had, you know, vending companies that had their own people too. So kind of like I guess the different families in New York, they have their people. It was kind of like the same principle, but like I said, it wasn't, you know, you didn't prick a finger or burn a saying. It wasn't any of that. But like I said, Sonny carried himself like that. He in a way, maybe in a Baltimore way, you could say he was a made guy in a Baltimore way. Not no offense to Italians, but in his mind, he thought that people always thought he was connected because he had, you know, carried himself, and he always had a shitload of money, and everything was like we're always skeptical of people, like who you talk to, who wants to be your friend. You had to be careful because the cops are always trying to get involved and infiltrate us, and you know, and take us down.
Would you say this, um, within this organization, like you
Yeah.
said, even though he was on the face value, it looked like the mob, whatever, operating wise,
It emulated the mob. Yeah, they kind of emulated that, but they weren't the mob.
but they weren't technically violent. There was no violence going on. Was there?
Yeah. I was involved in a few. I was involved in some stuff. Uh, you know, I carried. Let me get backtrack real quick. When I met the guys, all the guys that worked there, I had to run around with all the guys for months. For months, I'm getting paid 35 grand. I told my wife, like, why am I working? I'm making 35 grand a year just driving with guys. But the thing was, we didn't wear shirts that said Bill's Amusement. We didn't want to. Our van had no name on it. We didn't want to be because people try to rob us. We had our van stolen once. I mean, we didn't want to be like in your face. We're with the vending company, but people had to know me. So when I started, I had to work with every guy, the cigarette guy for a month. Everybody had to see my face and know I was part of that company. The day mechanic, the night mechanic, and then I ran with Sonny doing the collections. Everybody had to know I was part of that organization because, like I said, you don't hire somebody off the street. So they would say, okay, he's good to go. He's with them. You know, not the same as like he's one of us. Similar, I'm with them. I'm working with them.
I get
But
it.
we're not wearing a shirt or we don't have a card saying a badge saying I'm with Bill's Amusement, but they saw me enough to recognize me.
So all these people that you're saying, because like you said, they only hire people that they know. So
That didn't know. And Sonny got me on there because when he bought the company 2 years ago, he bought everybody that worked there because they'd been there a while. So, they were there. They were vetted at some point. So he kept them on, but he never, like I said, he never trusted anybody. So he wanted me to come in and kind of like work with them. And they were all uptight. They didn't until they knew that eventually I was going to marry his sister-in-law. They were all like on edge because like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he riding with us? Why is he doing this? But
well,
go ahead.
these other people also, obviously, Sonny trusted him, obviously, to have you around them. Of course.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, like you said, he always said he was a good read of people, and he was. I mean, like a guy had a 140 plus IQ, and I think he knew anybody gets a taste of money, and then when you go out and politicians are shaking your hand, and they want to be nice to you because they're nice to me because they knew who I'm with. Because
Right.
Sonny's giving them envelope of money, for something. So that it kind of like it's euphoric when you're in your 20s, and then you go to a restaurant. It's like the one scene in Goodfellas. He's
Yeah.
walking through the back of the restaurant. No, we didn't do that, but we would walk into place, and they'd be like, they wouldn't make a scene. They just and give us a table because they're machine men. That was our moniker. We are called machine men, and people associated machine men with criminals and the mob, not the Italian mob, but
Uh,
organized crime.
right. Well, when did this whole entire thing come crashing down? And what forced you to walk away?
It started well. The start was when I went on. Well, the first I was on a police raid. My first raid 6 months in, we got a call. We got hit, and me and Rob were in a truck moving equipment that day, and it was in the morning. And sometimes the police would call your account and say the office and say, "Hey, you got 15 minutes to come down, open the machines up, or we're going to smash them up." But sometimes they was going there with sledgehammers and to smash them up, and it cost you 2,000 a piece to replace them. But this one day they called us up. We went down there. They're tearing the bar up because the guy wouldn't give up the drawer money because when they raid you, they take every penny in your bar because they associate that bar with illegal gambling. So
Mhm.
whatever money is in your register, whatever money is in your safe, of course, all the machine money, they take it. And this guy didn't want to give up his money. He had it hidden. And they're tearing the tiles up. They're knocking the ceiling tiles or they're busting bottles up. And when we got there, he's like screaming, Jarrell, we own the place. What are you doing? They're tearing my place up. And Rob said, hey, man, get in the floor drain. He's got his money hidden in the floor drain because they're tearing the place up. But how this worked, this is how this worked. When they got raided, when these guys got raided, we took care of everything. So the $1,500 they took out of his register, we gave the guy back his $1,500. If they took out $3,000 on the machines, half of it would have been his. We gave him $1,500. We get him a lawyer. We fixed the place up, what they police smashed up. We pay court costs, fines, miss work, everything. He's whole because he's going to take the hit. We're not taking the hit. He's taking hits. So it was like all the operators, it was an unwritten rule that if they get popped, we eat everything. That's the way it goes. And we go round and round. And within an hour, we're up and running again. We have the boards back in there. Boom, we're back up. We're back gambling again. I mean, within an hour.
Wow. So is this around the time that things started to change for you?
Well, they changed when after that, I went to see my Phil every Tuesday, every Thursday. I had to go see Phil, and if I had an envelope for him or not. I started doing that, and he said he had something for me this one Thursday, and it was a shoebox. And this guy was a big guy. He was like 6'5", 200 some pounds. He had a scar down his face. You see the new series of Penguin? He kind of reminded me. He looked like the Penguin a little bit. He's a big guy with a scar that got in a fight. He was in a gang when he was a kid too, and he got cut in the face. And he gives me the shoebox, and he says, "This is for you." And I open up, there's a gun in it with an ankle holster. I'm like, "Why is this?" He's a judge, give me a gun. He said, "Just in case, you got to watch yourself." With Sonny, he likes to get shit on people. He likes to control people, politicians and all. So at that point there, I'm thinking like, man, why is he giving me a gun? He kind of helped me get hired. Now he's giving me a gun to watch myself. And then things started to happen with after that raid, we went out to a bar. Sonny goes, "I'm treat you to dinner." So it always doesn't happen like this. And these two hot girls come in, and one's kissing him, and one's like rubbing on me. I'm like, "What the hell is this about?" I'm getting married soon, and I get beeped, and so I got beeped. And I got the hell out of here. I had to go do something, and then things were happening. But I think the culmination of things when he was at the tip of the iceberg was talking about violence. I got he got me set up in fights where he was booking with this one guy. There's a guy named Johnny Polano who was an Italian. He wasn't a mate guy, but he was an associate of New Jersey, and he would bet with him 500 game. He bet a couple thousand a week. He paid this guy. There's another guy. He won like 9,000. Then he was down 10. The guy went to collect. I didn't know that. We went out there one night, and I had no idea. And we're sitting at the bar facing the door, and this guy comes in, and he's at the jukebox, and the guy starts something with him, and he's looking at me like, "Come outside." And I'd knock the guy out. The guy was going to pull a knife on me. I knocked the guy out. And he said, "Man, thanks." He goes, "What the fuck was that about?" He goes, "Oh, I told that guy, fuck you, I'm not paying you your 10 grand." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to fuck you up when I see you." He goes, I'll meet you wherever you want to go. Sonny's telling this guy that. I didn't know anything about this. So he drags me out there. I had no idea he set me up for this fight. And when he goes outside, he says, "Stick close." I follow him outside, and guy's starting to wail on him. I get in there. I had a roll of quarters in my hand. I was cupping it, and I just clocked him with the quarters, knocked him flat in the parking lot, and we got the hell out of there. That was the start of it. I'm thinking, like, he set me up. I said, "What the hell you done if I wasn't here?" He goes, "I wasn't going to be here unless you were here." So I'm thinking, like, "Oh, you set me up for this." That was the first thing. Then the second thing, which was a big deal, we had a guy, one of our guys got murdered one night. This guy, I'm kind of speeding the story up a little bit.
Yeah.
We had this nightclub, and this guy was a big coke addict, and he used to call this guy stutterfuck. And I thought it was I said, "Man, that's kind of rude, calling this guy stutterfuck because he's got a speech impediment." But I found out the guy did so much cocaine. He stuttered all the time. So then I like, whatever, the guy's got a problem. So this guy, we're making like 10,000 a week at this joint. He started fucking up. He wasn't paying his rent. So Sonny's like, "You got to go over there at night and collect his money." And like, what? I got to fucking go over there and, watch him run his business. So I was doing it for a while. I said, "Something's got to change. I can't do this." So he started to have me like do like dirty work.
Mhm.
And in a way, I didn't mind because I drank a lot back then. I didn't like doing it, but I did it. I carried a gun illegally. Occasionally, I brandished it. My co-writer of the book I wrote in 2016, he asked me, "How did you get away with that back then?" I said, "Well, the people we dealt with weren't going to complain." And I said, "Nobody, like today, everybody has a phone. They got a camera. They got a video. So back in the 90s, you could do shit like that. And these guys weren't going to complain because not everybody was a degenerate, but some of these guys were." So this guy that had a coke problem, I'm watching the bar. He's like, "I'm going to put you in there with him." I says, "No fucking way I'm going to be in it with this guy," because he ran an after hours club in the back of his nightclub. He had a bar in the back. He had coke back there, prostitutes. And I get a call at 5 in the morning, go over there, dump the machines, which he's out of cash. You dump the machines, he signs a receipt. He keeps these guys in there gambling. I'm like, "Man, the guy's going to get us locked up." So he finds a partner. This guy, Dickie, finds a partner, or Richie, sorry, Richie. And they buy another joint down the street because they're doing so much business there that he was going to spread it around. And it was like a few weeks later, his partner, Paul Monk, that you can look him up, Paul Monk, Baltimore, he got assassinated out back at that bar, the bar they just bought a few months prior. And I went over there, and the police were like, Richie called me up. I went over there. I'm thinking, like, man, he called me in the middle of the night. My wife's like freaking out. "Where you got to go?" I get my gun, my briefcase. I said, "Don't answer the phone. Don't go to the door. Don't do nothing." And she's like, "What?" She didn't know how. And stuff I do now, like I post things on YouTube and all, tell stories. She's like, "When did that happen? What? You never told me that." I said, "I didn't tell you things on purpose. I didn't tell you things for a reason. You didn't need to know these things." So that guy got murdered, and I'd show up there. The cops said, "Who are you? What are you doing? Where were you at 2 o'clock?" I said, "I was home." And Richie said, "You called me." Richie said he called me. So that was a big thing there. This guy getting whacked, but Sonny kind of used that to his advantage. Like it was me, like because they owed us so much money, and we found out. I confronted the guy. The guy was a big coke dealer on the side. We thought he was a legitimate business guy that wanted to partner with this guy we set him up with, but he's selling a lot of coke. So Sonny kind of like wore that as a badge. I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to wear it as a badge because the police are going to start looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got involved in the illegal gambling game, which these Italians were running it. He tried to stiff him for 30 grand. They came to our office and they start beating up his partner. He was hiding. He was hiding in his office, and I'm in the back there. He told me the day before, man, bring your. Because I had a 38 and I carried a Mossberg shotgun with a rope around it. I could hide my jacket. That's kind of how crazy I was. And these guys, when these two Italian guys came in, Sonny had said he wasn't going to pay them, so they wanted. They told Ira, "We're here to collect money from Sonny." Ira's like, "I have nothing to do with it. You talk to Sonny." They go, "You're his partner. He owed us 30 grand yesterday. Now he owes us 35. So we're going to collect it from you." And Ira's like, Ira stands up, and I'm listening to him from the back of the shop with my shotgun, like kind of shaking, like, man, these guys are going to fucking kill him. And they're like, Ira stands up and goes, what are you going to do? This is not, what are you going to do? This is 1993. Like, that's going to, like, nobody's going to fuck you up over 35 grand in 1990. So these guys start wailing on him. I mean, wow, I can hear this. And he's like, I can hear him. He's in distress. So I come walking through that door of that fucking shotgun, and these two Italian guys stand up. They're like, stand up. And I cocked it and let him a shell came out to let him know it was loaded. And I pointed at him. Now I didn't speak Italian. They said something Italian, but they understood 20 gauge. And the one guy took a step, and I said, one more. And I said, that's going to be your last step. And they backed out. I followed them out the door, and they got out of there. So get the fuck out. So I'm like shaking, Irish shaking, and they were like, what the fuck? What the fuck? This is, he got us involved with these Italian guys. So he comes through the office. Oh, I saved the day. I saved the day. I'm like, I saved the day. You got me. They told me they're going to get me. Last thing they said when they left, we will see you later in broken English. And I'm thinking, like, these guys are going to fucking kill me because I just pointed a gun at them to save Ira's hide, and you're hiding in the fucking office. So he called. We were connected. We called people. He had that game. That game. It was an after hours casino, like a roulette, blackjack, over top this garage. He called the police, and they said, somebody's got to make a call at 8 o'clock. Say there's gunshots coming from there. And he looks at me. So I went over 8 o'clock at night. Payphone, gunshots. Police show up. Everybody showed up. Busted the place out. Those guys were carrying illegal firearms. They got locked up. They were gone. But then the worry was, I'm worried with these guys connected because these guys were Italians. It wasn't their game. It was a local bookmaker's game that was running it, but these guys were bankrolling it. So the guy that Sonny would bet with, this guy named Johnny Polano, had a sub shop on Harvard Road. It was a front to launder his money because he was a bookmaker. But the crazy thing was, his subs are so fucking good. At noon, there's a line around the building. He didn't want all that attention. But I mean, his son was the best damn sub maker in the county. But he just whatever. He was making money, but he was laundering his money through there. So he told me, Sonny told me, go see Johnny Polano. He'll know. He knows me. He'll know if these guys were connected. I'm like, you come with me? He's like, oh, no, you're going to go. So I'm thinking, like, what? He's just setting me up to get shot or. So I go over there like 4 days later. And we used to eat in there like once a week. And he knew me. And Polano was funny. I mean, he was an Italian guy. Silk pants, silk shirt, gold necklace, gold bracelet, gold watch, the ring.
9 yards.
White apron never was nothing was ever on his apron. Owned a pizza sub shop. Nothing was ever on his white apron because he was on the phone running his bookmaking. So I get in there and sit down. And he comes over smiling at me, and I'm thinking, oh fuck. And I had my 38 in my back of my pants. I'm like, I had no grudge with him, but I'm like, I'm trying to get out of a bad situation. I didn't know what was going on. So he comes over smiling. He said, he goes, I heard what happened. News travel fast, He goes, I heard what happened. I said, you did? He goes, I heard everything. And he said, he goes, you got fucking lucky. I said, what do you mean? He goes, those guys, yeah, they were Italian, but they weren't anybody I know or with anybody. They were like subcontractors. They were like trying to get a foothold. They were trying to do their own thing. And he said there was nobody that he knew or that was connected with anybody. So we lucked out there. But he said I'm not saying they're not going to come back and fucking kill you and try to get their money, but they're nobody connected that I know of. So that was kind of a relief there. But that started me thinking like, all right, I got to get the fuck out of this. And then one of our joints came up for sale, curb shop, the place I bought in '93. So I bought it. And I'm not telling them what I'm trying to plan my escape. But we're family, he's godfather to my oldest son. I mean, him and Phil paid for my whole wedding, the hall, the the caterer, the band, extra hours, 4 hours. Sonny paid for my honeymoon at the time. We went to Las Brisas, Mexico, which is like one of the lifestyles of the rich and famous top 10 places to go. They wanted me in that every time something bad happened, they would do something good for me because he didn't want me getting out.
Wow, that is crazy. This is around what time?
This is the end of '93, and like I said, I bought the bar, and I'm trying to get playing my way out, and the feds. Then I find out 94 to '95. I'm jumping forward a little bit. I start seeing he's not like doing much. I'm doing everything. He's like let me do everything. He's got girlfriends. He's going to Atlantic City. He's going to Vegas. He lives out of town. So what he would do, he would tell his wife he'd come in town a couple of days a week. And normally part of my job too was going out to bars, hanging out. My wife didn't like it too much. Hanging out, trying to keep our accounts, spending money, buying people drinks, and then hanging in new bars where we're trying to get the accounts. So that's part of the job too. So when he's out running around with his girlfriends, he's giving me, $500. Hey, go here, go here, go here. Tell your wife you're with me because they're sisters. He's married to his wife, and my wife are sisters. Well, I take my wife starts like wondering am I cheating on her because I wouldn't take her to certain places where we have accounts that they're happening spots. And so I took her a couple of times, and somebody come over and say, "Hey, Maria's looking for. Why did Maria get tangled up with Sonny?" I told her she's a gold digger. He's a gold digger. My wife's like, not, and this person not knowing that my wife and his wife are sisters. So the cat's out of the bag. My wife knows that he's running around on her. And so my wife's like, I love my sister. I would never tell her this because it would break her heart. And then I said, fine, and then here comes, I'm doing the collections. This is '94, '95. I start seeing Crown Vics everywhere. Everywhere I'm going, I'm seeing these Crown Vics. And he's doing his stuff. And I'm telling him, I said, man, I said, for about a month or so, I'm seeing these Crown Vics. Like, because I'll make a habit. We do collections. I would do them early in the morning. So before anybody's up, because you don't want to get robbed or stuck up. So I would drive down around the block. I would make sure it's okay to go in the joint because I don't want to get stuck up or somebody hit me in the head because people are always looking to rob us. I started noticing Crown Vics. I'm like, and people are in them. I said, man, what the fuck are these Crown Vics? They're outside of my apartment. They're at the counts. And I told Sonny that. He's like, you're imagining it. You're imagining. I said, dude, I'm fucking seeing Crown Vics, man. I want to be a cop. I know what Crown Vics look like. And then he
You
came up
know,
once. I'm sorry.
the police, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry.
The people you're speaking of that you're seeing, they're
They're
pure, they're police.
they're police. They ended up being the feds. So we didn't know that at the time. So he comes up one time and he sees a few. He goes, "Oh fuck, you're right, man. It's somebody. Somebody's looking at something." So then a couple months go by, I stopped seeing him. He calls me up on a Saturday night, like 2 o'clock in the morning. He goes, "Meet me at we used to meet at the Belloc Diner for breakfast." He goes, "I want you to meet me for breakfast Saturday night, 2 in the morning." He's calling me. I said, "Oh, Monday." I'm thinking Monday morning. No, now, like now. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, what the fuck? I get over there, and when he goes home, he went home on Fridays to be with his family. He would go through the mail. He got a letter from the phone company. His lawyer said it was by mistake, and it said the feds no longer request any more taps on your phone, wiretaps. He gave it to. He saw his lawyer. His lawyer goes, "You shouldn't have got this letter. The phone company fucked up. They let him know that the feds were tapping his phone." And so he told him, he goes, "If they're tapping your phone, whoever you're talking," he was talking to me all the time. My apartment, my bar, him. I mean, and I'm thinking like, oh fuck. So at that point, he like shuts down. He's like not talking to me. He's thinking maybe I ratted him out. And then he gets the idea, like, it was quiet for a few months. He goes, I'm I'm thinking about getting out. I said, okay. And he always said if he got out, because his kids were little, that he would just give it to me. So every time, like when the Italian thing happened, I'm like, dude, I'm done. Oh man, hey, one more year or so, I'm gonna get this is all yours. I'm gonna give it to you. So he always had this freaking play to keep me sucked in, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I, I said, I don't know. He goes, I'll sell. He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll sell everything for 200 grand. Now at this point, he already split from his partner. They had a bad fallout after the Italian thing and Paul Monk get murdered. They were done. So Ira took his accounts. Sonny took his. So he was making probably the same money, but with like half the headaches. So I'm thinking like 200,000. They said, I'm thinking like, you told me you were going to give it to me when you're retired. He's like, well, think about it, think about it, think about it. I said, I thought about it. I said, I don't fucking want it. Because I had the bar. I was getting ready to get out. I had the bar. But my wife didn't know a lot of this stuff because I didn't want her and her sister to have issues. But then she finds out because her sister's telling her a bunch of shit that, oh, your husband's cheating on you, this and that, which it was the opposite. It was the fucking opposite. I was covering for him. And I'm like, she knew me. I'm like, I'm home. I'm home every night. He she heard from people about at the bars, oh, Sonny was with Mary last night. And she's like, she already knew what was going on. So I'm like, I'm getting out. So he says, he tries to say, okay, I'm selling everything. So you need I show up at the office one day. He's not talking to me. I'm still doing collections for him. He's not talking to me. And I go in the office in the morning and there's a note there. It says, sign this. And it was a vending contract. I didn't have a vending contract with him. I mean, I bought the bar. I borrowed 25 grand. He didn't make me sign anything. He gave me 25 grand. I gave it to the guy. I bought the bar. I paid the guy monthly. I gave him his 25 grand back. I never signed a fucking thing with him. I mean, I'm family, you know. So he has his contract drawn up, a 5-year contract. So he's trying to sell his accounts, what he has left, but he can't sell them without contracts. The other operators aren't going to buy him. You can't. I'm not going to buy that bar or your vending business if you're not contractually obligated these guys to you. Because what are you selling? You're not selling anything. So I'm like, fuck him. I ripped the fucking contract up that day. And I left it there. I left all the keys there, but the door key. I locked the thing up, locked the key up, and I fucking threw the key in the fucking slot through the door. And I said, that was it. I was done. By the time I got home, he's calling my house, and I can hear him. He's fucking yelling. My wife has the phone out like this. He's cussing, yelling at my wife. I'm thinking like, my wife has nothing to do with this. It's between me and him, two men. And I get on the phone. He's like, you did, you saw all the shit I did for you. Blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking like, all the shit, all the shit I did for you. You put me in some serious situations other than the few I told you about. There's other ones that I was involved in, things I'm not talking about. But and I'm thinking like, dude, he goes, you got to get over here. We got to work this out. I said, there's nothing to work out. I'm done. I'm finished. I ain't fucking signing a contract. He's like, I still had it. He was right. I still had the machines, his machines in my bar. They were his machines. I said, all right, come over. He was like, he had a prior backstory. He had a prior felony conviction for fraud in another life. And so he couldn't legally carry a gun, but I knew he had a 45. He had a old M1911A1. I knew he had that. And when somebody's cornered, they're you don't know what they're going to do when they're like at their wits' end. Because I did everything for him. I ran the whole fucking operation. He was that fucking off. But what he was trying to do, he knew the feds, as long as it took, they would come at him. So he was trying to skim everything over to me, like saying, "Oh, it was him. I'm out of town. It was him." So I saw that he was trying to do that to me. I saw it. That's why I bought the bar, and I was slowly hedging my bets to get away from him, just trying to do it at the right time. But it was family, and it was at that point I was like, "Fuck it, we don't talk ever again." Or my family, their family, that's the way it is. So I go over
Well,
that all. Go ahead.
before you go any further, it's very interesting, and I'm intrigued by the whole thing. But because we went a little bit over the usual time that we
Oh,
have,
I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't realize we had a time frame. Okay, no worries.
no, because I'm thinking we can do a part two of this.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah.